I now recognize Representative Scott for 5 minutes on H.R. 8182.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I'm here on H.R. 8182, which would redesignate the Ocmulgee Mounds National Historic Park in Macon, Georgia as the Ocmulgee Mounds National Park and Preserve, the first national park in Georgia. This is a bipartisan initiative that goes all the way back to 1934. My colleague, Congressman Bishop, and I, along with then Senators Saxby Chambliss and Johnny Isakson, first authored the Ocmulgee Mounds National Historic Boundary Revision Act in 2014. It was passed in 19, enacted into law, and it included a resource study that was completed in 2023 and changed the name to the Ocmulgee Mounds National Historic Park. I want you to know, as an avid sportsman, one of the things that I first requested was information from the Georgia Department of Natural Resources and a relationship with them to make sure that we were protecting and expanding the hunting and fishing access within the preserve boundaries. The language prioritizes public hunting and fishing access while protecting the state's rights and regulation and private property rights in Middle Georgia. As a member of the House Armed Services Committee, I also want you to know that this has the ability to help us with encroachment issues surrounding Robins Air Force Base in Middle Georgia. Now, Georgia is composed of roughly 38 million acres. Only about 5% of Georgia, our land, is in the Federal Registry. So it is a very small expansion of property in the state of Georgia in a state where we don't have much federal land. This land will also only be acquired through purchases from willing sellers, donations, or land exchange. No eminent domain is authorized in this piece of legislation. This redesignation and a relatively small addition to the Federal Register has the potential to have a significant economic impact for the Middle Georgia region, which Seth Clark will expand on in his testimony. I understand and acknowledge the very real challenges in states with high acreage of federal land. This is different for those of us in Georgia. Middle Georgians' concern lie in the potential commercial development of a pristine hunting and fishing land, the threat to national security and regional economic viability associated with not protecting the encroachment zones of Robins Air Force Base, and the loss of the irreplaceable Muskogee Creek cultural resources and sacred sites. The Ocmulgee Mounds National Park and Preserve Establishment Act would create a historic opportunity to protect important natural and cultural resources, protect hunting and fishing for generations to come, and bring economic opportunities to Middle Georgia through the creation of Georgia's first national park. Mr. Chairman, I would now like to yield the remainder of my time to my co-lead, Congressman Bishop, who has also worked for many years tirelessly with me on this bipartisan effort.
The gentleman yields to Mr. Bishop.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thank members of the committees for allowing Representative Scott and me to testify on behalf of our bill, the Ocmulgee Mounds National Park and Reserve Establishment Act. Congressman Scott and I have a long history of working together in a bipartisan fashion to preserve and protect this special place in Middle Georgia, albeit not quite as long as Ocmulgee's 17,000-year history. Most recently, we worked together with then Senators Saxby Chambliss and Johnny Isakson to change the name from Ocmulgee National Monument to Ocmulgee Mounds National Historical Park, to expand the boundaries from approximately 702 acres to over 2,800 acres, to provide protection to additional archaeological resources, and to authorize a resources study to explore the possibility of expanding the park even further to include additional opportunities for hunting, camping, fishing, and other recreational activities. That legislation was signed into law in 2019. Our bill today builds upon that resources study, which was released last year. It reflects key input from stakeholders at the federal, state, and local levels, including the Muskogee Creek Nation, whose ancestral sites are located inside the proposed boundary. In fact, our legislation, which will create the first national park in the state of Georgia, establishes a path for a tribal, non-tribal co-management similar to the co-management models of other national parks and preserves. If successful, Ocmulgee will be the first national park co-managed by one of the 5 tribes that was forced from their lands in 1836, a tragedy in our history known today as the Trail of Tears. In addition to preserving significant historical and cultural resources, our bill will expand Ocmulgee's footprint to provide increased opportunities for visitors to enjoy an abundant recreational activities the area has to offer, including, as I said earlier, hunting, camping, and fishing. According to an analysis by the National Park Conservation Association, our legislation could increase visitors to Middle Georgia by sixfold over the next 15 years. It could bring in more than $34 million in annual tax revenue to the region, as well as support over 3,000 jobs through visitor activity and tourism. Finally, Representative Scott and I, as well as Georgia's current two senators, have worked closely with Robins Air Force Base in Warner Robins to put land into conservation near the base along the Ocmulgee floodplain in order to maintain a buffer to prevent development that would encroach into the flight pattern areas. By protecting these lands, it will help Robins Air Force Base to continue to maintain its military readiness. Again, I'd like to thank the Subcommittee on Federal Lands for inviting Representative Scott and me to testify this afternoon, and we believe that our bill would strengthen the current Ocmulgee Mounds National Historic Park and bolster the economy and the cultural life of Georgia and beyond. So I urge your support and be happy to answer any questions that you might have. I yield back, Mr. Chairman.